Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ayotunde Balogun.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, the General Officer Commanding 7th Division, Brigadier General Abubakar Haruna, says his team has rescued more than 20,000 people in the military's humanitarian efforts in the Borno State flooding crisis. The National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons says flooding has affected 40% of farmlands in Maiduguri, leading to food insecurity for over 1 million people. And the Presidential Committee on the Sales of Crude Oil and Refined Products says loading of the first batch of PMS from the Dangote Refinery will commence on Sunday, September 15th. The committee assures that from October the 1st, the NNPC will commence the supply of about 385,000 barrels per day of crude oil to the Dangote Refinery to be paid for in Naira.
In our business news, economic think tank Financial Derivatives Company forecasts Nigeria's inflation to drop to 32.46% in August.
And on sports news tonight, Nigeria's Junior Tigers qualifies for the FIBA Under-19 Women's World Cup for the first time after reaching the final of the Under-18 Afro-Basket in Pretoria, South Africa.
From the nation's capital, the United States seeks newer areas of cooperation with the Nigerian Navy in order to keep the Gulf of Guinea and the global maritime space safer for business and economic activities.
And in international news from London, President Putin has sent a clear warning to the West. Don't allow Ukraine to use your long-range missiles to strike Russian territory.
The General Officer commanding the 7th Division and Commander Sector 1 Northeast Operation Hadinkai, Brigadier General Abubakar Haruna, has told Channels Television that the command has rescued more than 20,000 people since the division joined the humanitarian efforts. Now, the GOC said the division has not employed aircraft for the operation because of the terrain, which has more tall buildings, and also said more boats are expected in the coming days. Today, Channels Television's crew joined the Army team on one of its trips and also visited the dam, which is not currently accessible to the general public. Our correspondent, Ayola Kasim, reports.
A happy moment for Ibrahim Mohammed Sani and his family. He has just reconnected with his 3 children thanks to the military rescue efforts. The father of 5 put 3 of his children into the amphibian trailer in a hurry to ensure their safety, not sure of when he would be able to see them again. That uncertainty just turned to joy.
Ina tafiya shine sai na ga motoci agaji na soja shine na jefa yaran to ina kokarin ha kuma sai suka ja to sun riga sun tafi. On the process of coming to the city when they made the military evacuation truck, so he threw the kids into the vehicle, trying to jump on top of the vehicle, and then the vehicle blew up. That's why he lost the kid. But he finally made the kid with us here, and he's grateful to the military, to everybody that helped him to recover his children.
He and his 3 wives then joined us as we make our way to the dam. They are hitching a ride back to the city center, like many others, to find missing family members. This woman left her children behind in her rush. Many here can't believe she did that, but not everyone has been able to handle the situation with complete calmness. The level of destruction is depressing. Lives have been lost, businesses ruined, many families still separated, and many are still stranded. In the camps and on the streets, all they want is solutions.
I hear people saying that government is produced some committee to look over there, but the committee is too late. For now, we need an emergency response from the government, since the need of people is much from the government.
There are lessons learned. Today is much better than yesterday, and yesterday was better than the day before. So we have decided, the camp management has decided to group them. You know, my mandate is to cook. Once it's ready, I hand over to my colleague, the other commissioner, who coordinates the feeding. But what they have resolved in our coordination meeting is to group them house by house. So we learn by the day. I'm sure when you come tomorrow, it's going to be better. It's not something we planned for. We are only mitigating and responding to the situation.
Apart from its humanitarian efforts, the Army Division here says its main duty has not been neglected.
I assure you, we will not allow the incident of flood to overwhelm us to the extent that we will forget what our primary mandate is. All right? Forget about what you see here. People are where they are, securing the entire area. We have surveillance all over. We have everything that is supporting us. If there is anything, any threat, that threat will be dealt with immediately. So feel free. Every one of you should be very free. There is nothing whatsoever.
When we finally got to the dam, the water has receded, but the cause of the problem remains.
More rain is expected and the dam is still damaged. No one knows when this nightmare will end. But what we do know is that a lot more still needs to be done to bring comfort to the people of Maiduguri. From Alo Dam in Maiduguri, Borno State, Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
A total of 49 people have died since the beginning of the rainy season in Kano State due to flooding and building collapses. The executive secretary of the State Emergency Management Agency, who confirmed this to newsmen, said a total of 226 communities were affected. Meanwhile, in Jigawa State, where a similar incident occurred, victims of the flood have received support from the state government. Our correspondent, Sadiq Ilyasu, reports.
In the past 40 days, parts of Kano and Jigawa states in the northwest region of the country have experienced heavy flooding. Many people lost their homes, farms, and loved ones. According to the executive secretary of the State Emergency Management Agency, about 49 people lost their lives in Kano.
1,414 persons were displaced. Second to the last, we have number of injuries. 139 number of people were injured. While unfortunately, we lost 49 individuals from within the 27 local government areas.
Meanwhile, in Jigawa State, flooding is still visible in Buji local government area. However, victims received food items and the sum of 20,000 naira each to cushion the effects of the flood.
We received millet, maize, spaghetti and 20,000 naira. We are really grateful because we need this intervention.
Governor Umar Namadu of Jigawa State said the intervention is aimed at providing relief to the victims who are now settling in 12 IDP camps across the state.
These people, we have given them intervention twice. And today, we are given almost the third intervention. And in this intervention, we are launching today 15,775 people. Each of them will get 10 kg bag of rice, 10 kg bag of maize, 10 kg bags of millet, and 1 carton of spaghetti, as well as 20,000 cash.
The government will continue to monitor the situation and provide necessary support to those affected. Sadiq Ilyasu, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the flood situation in Kaduna State has led to the damage of a bridge and a road connecting Majere to Saminaka and 4 other communities in Lere local government area of the state. The incident prevented residents of the affected agrarian communities from connecting to Saminaka, the headquarters of Lere local government, for their day-to-day activities. Speaking when he visited the affected communities, the Chief of Staff to Governor Uba Sani, who doubles as the chairman of the Flood Impact Assessment Committee, Mr. Sani Kila, describes the collapsed bridge as a disaster that requires urgent attention.
Lere is another local government area in Kaduna State that has had a bitter taste of the devastating floods that is ravaging many parts of the country. Although predicted by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency that Kaduna is among the states that will be heavily impacted by floods this year, not many of the people were mindful of the inherent dangers ahead. 5 communities in Lere local government area of the state, including Majire, Saminaka, Nasarawa, have been cut off from the remaining part of the council by the impact of the flood, which was caused by heavy rainfall. The flood disaster has affected farming business in the area, which is predominantly known for producing grains and other crops in large scale. A delegation from the government, led by the chairman of the State Flood Impact Assessment Committee, Mr. Sani Kila, visits the affected communities to assess the impact of the damage.
This deserved a very serious and very urgent government attention. This bridge link up more than 5 communities, and you can see the level of damage. This is the worst. It actually requires serious government intervention.
This community, Marjeri, links a lot of communities to the commercial center of the local government, that's Saminaka, which is the capital. Now, it is very important. The road itself is very important. So the collapse of this bridge is like you excommunicate so many communities from accessing the center.
Apart from the seasonal flooding, there is also devastating erosion in the communities, a natural disaster that is threatening homes and livelihoods.
We, the people of Garun Rafi, are asking you to be patient and bear with us. This is a new phase that God has given us that we never thought would come to us. We wrote through the local government and it was endorsed by the chairman. This bridge was made from our farm proceeds.
The team also visited other flood-affected locations within the local government, including Wawan Rafi village, where another bridge collapsed, as well as Nasarawa and Ngwanshuru areas in the outskirts of Saminaka town.
The National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons has expressed deep sadness over the recent flooding in Borno State, which resulted from the overflowing of the Alo Dam. According to the Federal Commissioner of the agency, Mr. Tijani Ahmed, the flooding has affected 40% of farmlands in Maiduguri, leading to food insecurity for over 1 million people. He says the Commission will provide food and non-food items as well as mental health and psychosocial support for the victims.
The Commission is saddened by the recent catastrophic flooding as a result of overflowing of the Alau Dam, which led to the devastating flood in Maiduguri and its environs. On behalf of the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, the Commission commiserates with the Borno State government, people and families of the victims impacted by the horrific events of the past several days. Lying with our mandate, the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons, which is vested with the responsibility of ensuring protections, assistance, care, maintenance, and rehabilitation, as well as provision of durable solutions to those displaced by climate change-induced disaster, will provide food, non-food items, educational materials, wash, shelter, drugs, and medical supplies for emergency needs in order to bring succor to those adversely impacted by the flooding.
The federal government is advising states in the southern region of the country to step up proactive measures to address any eventual flooding events. The Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation, Professor Joseph Yutsev, stated this during a media briefing on the Maiduguri flood situation in Abuja. Professor Yutsev explains that the Alo Dam in Borno did not collapse during the recent flooding, attributing the overflow to climate change and unusual heavy rainfall. The minister states that a team of technical experts are assessing the damage and working on solutions. In part two, after the break, the Presidential Committee on the Sales of Crude Oil and Refined Products as loading of the first batch of PMS from the Dangote Refinery will commence on Sunday, September 15th. The committee assures that from October the 1st, the NNPC will commence the supply of about 385,000 barrels of crude oil per day to the Dangote Refinery to be paid for in Naira. Please stay with us. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, says the days of notorious bandit leader Bello Turji and other terrorists are numbered, as troops are committed to ending insecurity in Nigeria's northwest region. He also announced the killing of Halilu Sububu, a wanted bandit leader operating in the western zone of Zamfara State. The defense chief stated this when he paid a working visit to the Sector 1 of Operation Hadarin Daji in Gusau, the Zamfara State capital.
Following the recent threats by bandits to overrun communities in Nigeria's northwest region, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, is in Zamfara State for an operational visit to the troops.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
First, he pays a courtesy visit on the governor, Dauda Lawal, where he announced plans for a joint military theatre of operations for the northwest region. He adds that additional helicopters and other fighting equipment will be deployed to the state.
We have a synergy. My concept of operation is whatever we're doing must be people-centric. If the people we're protecting are not happy with us, then we're not succeeding. We are not an operational armed forces. We're a Nigerian armed forces for Nigeria. So we want Nigerians to take ownership of the armed forces.
The governor appreciates the efforts of security agencies and highlights the need to rid the state of banditry.
You can confirm that the FCS is here, the CP is here, and we are ready to complement your efforts. These people are all in their respective local governments, so they understand the terrain, and they will help the security operatives in terms of finding these guys who have become a menace in the society.
The Chief of Defense Staff then proceeds to the headquarters of the 1 Brigade Nigeria Army, Gusau, where he's briefed on the operational activities of the Sector 1 of Operation Hadarin Daji. He also offers a minute silence and prayers for the souls of the soldiers killed in recent bandit attacks on the state.
The gentle souls of our departed colleagues rest in perfect peace.
He also addressed the troops and announced cash rewards for the troops who carried out the recent operation that led to the killing of a wanted bandit leader, Halilu Sububu.
Well, definitely we'll not tell you what we are putting in place, but definitely reactions have been there. Those areas have been monitored and adequate actions will be taken accordingly. And it's not only him. All other commanders very soon, just like the way today, yesterday night, will be able to take out Halilu himself. We're coming after all of them one by one. The good thing for them is any of them who is smart enough should leave the country. But as long as he remains on the foot of Nigeria, he's not going to last longer than necessary.
Over 30 motorcycles, hundreds of ammunition, and firearms were recovered during the operation.
The federal government is promising to support victims of the latest flood incidents and insecurity in parts of the country. Vice President Kashim Shettima made the promise when he visited an internally displaced persons camp in Niger State to assess the humanitarian situation. The Vice President promised that additional relief will be given to states with more conditions.
Vice President Kashim Shettima arrives at the Bola Ahmed Tinubu International Airport, Minna, in Niger State at about 11:45 in the morning. Alongside other members of the federal government's delegation, the number 2 citizen of Nigeria is received by Governor Morubagu and other state government officials. The delegation moves to Gwada in Shiro local government area, where persons displaced by the recent banditry attacks and flood disasters are camped. The vice president is moved by the condition of the IDPs, especially their children. He assures the people of support from the federal government as he reiterates the current administration's commitment to tackling insecurity and ecological challenges.
I want to assure the government and people of Niger State that the president is poised to assist all states of the federation towards addressing those challenges. And the federal government will do its utmost best to address the core challenges of infrastructural deficit across the length and breadth of this country.
To match words with action, the vice president makes presentation of relief materials to the IDPs. The visit of the vice president and the federal government delegation gives a sense of belonging to the state government.
We have been battling with insecurity issues. A lot of people are displaced internally, and all these are issues that have been in the front burner. So we are grateful for this visit, and the NEMA MD was here with the vice president, and all the goodies they brought. We are really, really grateful.
From the camp, the train of the vice president moves to the palace of the Emir of Minna, His Royal Highness Umaru Bahago, where the delegation and the traditional ruler held a closed-door meeting before departing Niger State. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
The Presidential Committee on the Sales of Crude Oil and Refined Product has announced that loading of the first batch of PMS from the Dangote Refinery will commence on Sunday, September the 15th. The committee also says that from October the 1st, the NNPCL will commence the supply of about 385,000 barrels per day of crude oil to the Dangote Refinery to be paid for in Naira. Addressing journalists after the committee meeting in Abuja, a member of the committee and chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zach Adeliji, explains that Dangote Refinery will in return supply PMS and diesel of equivalent value to the domestic market to be paid for in Naira. Other deliberations reached by the committee includes the sale of diesel in Naira by the Dangote Refinery to any interested off-taker, while PMS will only be sold to the NNPCL.
I'm glad to announce that all agreements have been put in place, and the loading of the first batch of PMS, as already announced by NNPC, will commence on Sunday, 15th September 2024. And from 1st of October, NNPC will commence the supply of crude oil to Dangote Refinery to be paid for in Naira. In return, Dangote Refinery will supply PMS and diesel of equivalent value to domestic market to be paid for in Naira. Diesel will be sold in Naira by Dangote Refinery to any interested off-taker. PMS will only be sold to NNPC. NNPC will then sell to various marketers for now. All associated regulatory costs, MPA, NIMASA, Federal Land Revenue, and all other regulatory or fee that are associated with this transaction will also be paid in Naira.
Still ahead on the news at 10, economic think tank Financial Derivatives Company forecasts Nigeria inflation to drop to 32.46% in August. That will be on Business News. Please join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. Let's now head to the nation's capital, and Terry Ikumi is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Hello, Terry.
Hi, Ayo. The United States is seeking newer areas of cooperation with the Nigerian Navy in order to keep the Gulf of Guinea and the global maritime space safer for business and economic activities. This was part of the discussions at the Naval Headquarters in Lagos, where the flag officer of the Western Naval Command, Rear Admiral Mustafa Hassan, mentioned that the upgrade of its Regional Maritime Capabilities Center would be a way to go.
We gave him a brief on our constitutional role and our challenges and area we think we can improve upon and work together towards making the global maritime economy much better placed. I can't really go into details on things we talked about, but the one I think I can tell you about is about enhancing or upgrading the sensor capabilities of the regional maritime awareness capability system. It's in good order and working, but we think we want an upgrade to put us in better state amongst the other leading nations of the world. So we're happy to receive you here today, Your Excellency. It's been a wonderful time. Thank you.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Ambassador Richard Mills, who seized the opportunity to introduce the new naval attaché, gave the Navy a thumbs up, while also indicating interest in expanding the scope of cooperation with the Navy.
Western Naval Command Headquarters.
It was very important to me on my first official trip to Lagos to come here and to deliver the message how important our partnership is with the Nigerian Navy and ensuring that the Gulf of Guinea can be as free as possible from piracy, oil theft, unregulated, unreported fishing. And our partnership is very, very important. And as the Vice Admiral said, we've been talking about how to strengthen it and what more we can do. Well, one is exercises, naval exercises between our two navies to improve coordination. I think a lot of things are working well. Our intelligence sharing, our training capabilities. The Vice Admiral did his job and shared with me some new assets and equipment that might be helpful. So we'll be looking at that.
Now, for advancement in sustainable architecture and construction, the Nigerian Institute of Architects is marking this year's edition to produce locally made innovation in materials, design strategies, and sustainable construction. President of the Institute, Mrs. Mobolaji Adeniyi, says the focus is to develop and promote local building materials and construction technology while looking at international best practices and innovations. She stated this on the sidelines of the 2024 ArchiBuild exposition organized by the Institute in Abuja.
The 2024 ArchiBuild Expo is bringing together architects, engineers, quantity surveyors, builders, material manufacturers, among others. The theme of this year's edition is Innovations in Sustainable Construction. The expo is showcasing local building materials, construction technology, which the Institute expects that it will serve as a call to action to increase patronage to locally made products in the industry.
This is what we do every year. And beyond that, we use it as an avenue to train ourselves, the older architects, the younger architects, what are the latest trends in the market, what are the buildings to look for. We even try to look at the environment. What are the iconic projects that we have in the country? We need to identify them, celebrate them, so that we can encourage other architects, to begin to do designs that are worthy, to be celebrated.
The highlight of the event is the award of the most iconic building in Nigeria, which is presented to the Professor Chike Edozian Secretariat, housing the Delta State Civil Service. It is designed by Mr. Kester Ifeadi from Contemporary Group Limited.
This award is for the most iconic corporate building in Nigeria. We have a lot of entries, but why this stood out, it was done by a Nigerian architect. All the materials were sourced indigenously. So there's so many other criteria that were put in place.
I stand on the shoulders of so many team members that were responsible for the success of this project. And the project we're speaking about is the Secretariat Project, Delta State Asaba, that has solved so many challenges that the civil service was facing in Delta State. So we're incredibly grateful first to members of the Institute, members of the jury that presented us with this award, and it's an encouragement and an inspiration for us.
The Institute is planning to focus on shaping a future where architecture are functional, sustainable, and resilient.
Evercare Hospital, Lekki, a tertiary private hospital offering specialty medical services, is organizing its first surgical colloquium in Lagos, as participants say public-private partnership will lead to improved service delivery. The conference brings together some of Nigeria's best minds in medical surgery and aims to propagate the message of the utilization of non-invasive operation for the delivery of high-quality and accessible healthcare to communities in Lagos and Nigeria at large.
Left side of the heart
Experts in Nigeria's medical field, particularly surgeons, as well as up-and-coming practitioners, are brought under one roof as Evercare Hospital holds its first surgical colloquium taking place in Lagos. The keynote speaker, Dr. Olujimi Koka, speaks on the import of laparoscopic surgery and solutions to challenges facing application of technology in surgical operations in Nigeria.
We need to train the local guys, encourage the public sector to train, encourage the private sector to train, and we need to mentor people. We need to support them, because there is no point in one person just being a superstar without, cascading and supporting other people.
Dr. Michael Sanusi, who joins virtually from the United States, speaks on cardiovascular surgery.
The patient actually was transferred to Evercare that day and had successful repair of his aorta, and has since gone on and had his renal transplant when I checked with the transplant team at the hospital in Abuja.
For the younger generation of surgeons, this event sets the tone for a better future.
It's a fantastic opportunity for budding healthcare professionals like myself and my colleagues who have come from the College of Medicine, to watch top players in surgery and in medicine generally, showcase incredible work they've been doing over the years as a way for young ones like us to draw inspiration and, get further insight and direction.
It is agreed that to achieve affordable healthcare, there must be public and private collaboration.
With this morning's academic meeting really blew my mind, indicating that a lot needed to be done by collaborating with the state.
Being in an emerging region means that we have a bit of challenges when it comes to this, but Evercare has invested quite a bit in introducing this into the market.
We're patient-centric, particular about outcomes, patient experience, and excellent clinical delivery.
Management of Evercare Hospital says this event is a testament to its commitment to excellence as it spotlights opportunities available in the surgical subfield for doctors and surgeons and other medical experts to utilize new innovations available.
Thank you, Ma.
Well, it's a wrap from the nation's capital. Business News is next with Willie Bonk.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Terry. Now, the financial derivatives company FDC has projected a further drop in Nigeria's headline inflation to 32.46% in August, down from 33.4% recorded in July. And this decline is attributed to several unusual developments in August, including the End Bad Governance protest, fuel scarcity, and the depreciation of the naira. According to the FDC, the lower inflation rate is mainly due to the base effect and the current harvest season. It adds that since prices were much higher in 2023, the increase in inflation this year looks smaller in comparison. However, core inflation is expected to continue its upward trend, rising slightly to 27.62% from 27.47%. Food inflation is projected to follow the headline inflation, dropping to 38.4% from 39.53% in July, after reaching a peak of 40.9% in June. Meanwhile, the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, is set to release the official inflation figures on September the 15th. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NEC, has fined the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, AEDC, that's the Abuja Disco, 1.69 billion naira for overbilling customers and failing to cap estimated bills. This fine, effective from September 2024, follows the review of data from January to September 2023. NEC also set the tariff for Band A customers at 209.50 naira per kilowatt hour for September, and this rate will be adjusted monthly based on inflation, exchange rates, and gas prices. Tariffs for Band B to E will remain at 22 rate at the 2022 rate until new government policies are announced. In addition, NEC estimates that the electricity subsidy for Abuja Disco customers in 2024 will be around 26.14 billion naira per month. It adds that if Abuja Disco does not maintain the required service level for band day feeders for 7 consecutive days, those feeders will be downgraded. Now, gold prices soared to a record high in London on Friday, driven by expectations of a potential interest rate cut by the U.S. Federal Reserve next week. The surge was also fueled by increased demand for safe haven assets as the U.S. presidential election draws closer. Investors move towards gold amid uncertainties in the market. Spot gold hit an all-time high of $2,570 per ounce, while gold futures neared $2,600 as the dollar and the treasury yields fell sharply. Meanwhile, Nigerian lawmakers back home are pushing for the Central Bank of Nigeria to expand its use of gold to boost the country's reserves. They believe this move will help strengthen the economy and provide better protection against financial challenges. Outside our shores, Boeing workers have gone on strike after rejecting a tentative deal that offered a 25% pay rise. More than 30,000 workers in Seattle and Portland began their walkout at midnight Pacific time on Friday. The strike adds to Boeing's troubles, including financial losses and a damaged reputation from safety issues, including 2 fatal crashes. It's a significant challenge for new CEO Kelly Ogberg, who started last month. Nearly 95% of union members voted against the pay deal, with 96% supporting the strike until a new agreement is reached. The plane maker says it acknowledges the union's concerns and is ready to negotiate a new deal. Now let's see how the domestic equities market ended today. Sustained positive sentiments for 2 consecutive days to end the final trading day in the green. John Bekwa has the details.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, it's a beautiful Friday indeed. At the NGX, as we see 248 billion naira being added to the market cap, and finally we cross over to the 56 trillion naira level. 56.753 trillion naira is what the market closed with. The all-share index is still retaining that 97,000, in fact, building on it. So we see 97,456.62, and the all-share index in the green, 0.44%. This is because of the food gas mostly, except for UBA. All others we still looking good. FBN holding almost 10% right there. GTCO, Accessco, and Zenith Bank, they drove that. And of course, this reflects in the counter. Banking comfortably in the green zone. We see 2.72% in the green. That's for banking. Consumer goods also green. And that's because of Flour Mill, Honeywell, International Breweries, and Nigerian breweries. There we see an unusual color we see with oil and gas today, 0.25% in the red. Eternal and Japo Gold and O&O, they had a little profit taken on them, and that drove that counter down. But the beautiful thing is we close this Friday with a lot of gains for the week, and also to the joy of the bull.
Many thanks, Will. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has announced new sanctions against Russian media channel RT, accusing it of being a de facto arm of Russia's intelligence apparatus. The declaration is part of a suite of actions the American government has taken against Russian state media as the U.S. election approaches. Here's Simon Pusey with other international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. President Putin has sent a clear warning to the West. Don't allow Ukraine to use your long-range missiles to strike Russian territory. Moscow, he said, would view that as the direct participation of NATO countries in the war in Ukraine. Russia has drawn red lines before and seen them crossed before. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who arrived in Washington earlier for talks with President Joe Biden, brushed aside the warning, saying Ukraine had the right to defend itself. Meanwhile, the UK Foreign Office says the accusation by Russia that diplomats were acting as spies in Moscow is completely baseless. It comes as Russia revoked the accreditation of 6 British diplomats, accusing them of spying. Security analysts believe this could be a Russian punishment for the UK, being seen as a cheerleader for supplying weapons to Ukraine.
Obviously, relations between the UK and Russia could barely be worse. This is, I guess, one step towards the total cutting off of all diplomatic relations and ambassadors being sent home and embassies closed and potentially even repurposed. But we're not quite there yet. But it does seem to me as though the UK does and always has done drawn a specific, particular level of ire from the Russians.
Kenyan activists have marched in honour of Rebecca Cheptegei and other female athletes. The body of the Ugandan Olympic athlete who died after being set on fire by her partner in Kenya was received by family and anti-femicide crusaders ahead of her burial. Cheptegei's family met with dozens of activists on Friday who had marched to the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital's morgue in the western city of Eldoret while chanting anti-femicide slogans. She is the 4th female athlete to have been killed by her partner in Kenya in yet another case of gender-based violence in recent years. China will gradually raise its retirement age for the first time since the 1950s, as the country confronts an aging population and a dwindling pension budget. The top legislative body on Friday announced proposals to raise the statutory retirement age from 50 to 55 for women in blue-collar jobs and from 55 to 58 for females in white-collar jobs. Men will see an increase from 60 to 63. China's current retirement ages are among the lowest in the world. The funeral of Sven-Göran Eriksson, the first foreigner to manage England's national soccer team, has taken place in the small Swedish town where he grew up. The service took place in Torsby, a rural town of fewer than 5,000 people near the border with Norway, and was attended by several hundred people inside the church. A softly spoken but determined coach, Eriksson guided teams in Sweden, Portugal and Italy to major trophies in the 1980s and 1990s before taking on the England job in 2001, managing stars such as David Beckham, with whom he formed a close bond. Eriksson announced in January that he was terminally ill with pancreatic cancer and spent much of the ensuing months reconnecting with many of the places and people central to his career before he died last month. Hundreds of people gathered hours in advance to catch a glimpse of Pope Francis while he visited St. Teresa's home and Catholic Junior College, his last events before departing Singapore to conclude his 12-day Asia trip. The 87-year-old Pope, who in recent years has suffered bouts of ill health, appeared in good form throughout the trip, maintaining a packed schedule and headlining more than 40 events. It's after he presided over a mass in Singapore's National Stadium. The mass drew tens of thousands of people to a venue that has also hosted performers such as Taylor Swift, who played 6 concerts there in March. And a CSX freight train has collided with a semi-truck transporting a military vehicle at a railroad crossing in South Carolina. The crash occurred when the lowboy trailer carrying a US Army howitzer became stuck on the tracks. No! Despite the severity of the incident, no injuries were reported. Witnesses described the crash as being like a bomb going off, with the train slamming into the immobile truck, resulting in significant damage. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. We begin with female basketball. Nigeria's Junior Tigress are through to the final of the FIBA Women's Under-18 Afro-Basket Championship, playing the game of their lives to beat Uganda in the semi-final earlier today. The girls saw off a spirited Ugandan team, winning the match 71-67 to set up a final clash with the defending champions Mali on Saturday. For reaching the final, the Junior Tigress also qualified for the World Cup holding next year in Czech Republic. picking one of the 2 automatic tickets from Africa. The female soccer coach Rani Waldrum has announced the resignation as head coach of the Super Falcons owing to his wife's health issues. Now, in a letter released by the coach, Mr. Waldrum says in his words, "It's been a challenging few weeks since the Olympics, with my wife's health issues weighing heavily on my mind. After careful consideration, I've decided to resign as head coach, allowing the NFF sufficient time to find a worthy successor for this exceptional team." Now, the Nigerian Football Federation are yet to officially respond to his resignation. To the reigning MPFL champions, Rangers International, who have now recorded a slim 1-0 victory over Angola's Sagrada Esperança in the first leg of the CAF Champions League second preliminary round tie in Uyo earlier today. Substitute Kazim Ogunleye scored the decisive goal 12 minutes from time. The return leg will be played in Luanda on Sunday, November the 22nd. Meanwhile, in the CAF Confederation Cup, Enyimba held the host Etoile Filante of Burkina Faso to a goalless draw. The return leg will hold at the Godswill Akpabio Stadium next week. To the English Premier League and outside our shores, Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta is hoping to have his captain back on time for their trip to Tottenham in the first North London derby on the 2024-2025 Premier League season. The captain, Martin Odegaard, who suffered an ankle injury playing for Norway, although coach Arteta offered some optimism on Friday, suggesting that the playmaker could still play some part. Now, Manchester City is hearing into their 115 alleged breaches of Premier League financial rules set to begin on Monday. Manager Pep Guardiola says he's looking forward to the decision by an independent commission. The hearing, which could last about 2 months, with a verdict expected by the season end, starts amidst a stretch of 6 games in 2 weeks in 3 competitions for the 4-time reigning champions, who host Brentford on Saturday.
We'll see. So I'm happy that it started on Monday, and I know you will be more rumors and new specialists about the sentences that come up. We're going to see. So I know what the people are looking forward. I know what they're expecting. I know it. What I read for many, many years, but I'm set. So everybody's innocent, and guilt is proven. So we'll see.
That's it on Sports News. I'm Olumide Macaulay. Ayo, it's back to you.
Many thanks, Olumide. And the main new PCL will commence the supply of about 385,000 barrels per day of crude to the Dangote Refinery to be paid for in Naira. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. You have a great weekend.